So I'm like, we got like an up and coming young buck in the game, but I mean, he's been doing this thing for a period of time. And for the ladies, once you hear his voice, I'm just gonna let you know he's already taken. He's off the book, so you can't even access him on that level. But I like to give whoever I'm interviewing with a particular nickname. So his nickname is the Get More Boss because again, he helps individuals get more listeners with their podcasts, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. I think he kind of dumbed it down just to make it really simple, but we're really gonna like peel back some onions today. So Anthony, the floor is yours. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit more about you and what would you like to talk about today?
Absolutely, man. So of course, my name's Anthony Nwaneri. I started off as a little young black boy, born in Nigeria, moved over here when I was around six. My mum works in the NHS. I moved here when I was around six, wanted to really make something for myself. Obviously a young age, but never really known where I was going to go, what I was going to do, right? But I had this drive and this hunger. Eventually went to university, dropped out, and then went all in on business, without any experience to begin with, without barely any money. And of course, really just invested in myself and put myself forward and somehow managed to land up into the podcasting space where I am today, kind of coaching individuals, helping business owners, really get more listeners for their podcast, turn a slow growth show into a rapidly growing positive ROI show. So that's kind of a little sneak peek in terms of me and in terms of talking today. Really is going to be all about, I guess, from my end, is really going to be about shifting perspectives on what it takes to really grow a podcast and what it really means, and really diving deeper into that.
Well, I think since you closed it out with that, I think it's a solid segue for your episode 104. And the title of that one was more so like the simple mind shift. And again, it was
Mm,
so the simple mind shift, but it was about doing more. And you were talking about Rogan that he puts out like 4 hour episodes 4 times a week. So like let's start with that because I think there's a lot of fear when new people are trying to get into
mm,
podcasting and they see Joe Rogan and they're like, there's no way in hell I can do that. But in reality, Joe Rogan
mm.
is the limit and you're not there yet. So like, let's talk about what you're doing and why the episode is so meaningful based upon what you just said.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, like, a lot of the clients that we have coming in to get more listeners that we work with, podcasts I speak on a day-to-day basis. I'm sure you've seen this as well. Um, a lot of people have amazing shows, but oftentimes you might have an amazing show, but when you don't have a reference point, what does good mean? If it's just you versus you and you're not comparing yourself to other people, what does good mean? It doesn't mean anything, it's just you versus you. And of course, that's okay to some people, and that's fine. For me, myself personally, I really find it important to compare myself and find rivals and to pick a battle to keep myself pushing forward. That's how I draw my energy from because then I know what excellent looks like. I know what I'm striving for. But if I don't know what I'm striving for, if I haven't got that perspective as a podcaster of what exceptional is, how do I know if what I'm doing is good or bad? Maybe your show isn't growing as fast as you'd like, but if you haven't got perspective on what good or bad is, you don't know how to make changes in order to get there. So I think the mindset shift and stuff is really having perspective on the field that we're competing against. You're not just a podcaster trying to get more listeners, you're a podcaster in the sea of other podcasters, in the sea of other business owners, in the sea of other content creators who are all competing for attention. And that's a reality of the world we're living in today.
So like let's just talk about, I mean, obviously that is exposing the reality of the world, right? I mean, obviously we have 8 billion people on the planet. We're probably closing in on probably 4 to 5 million podcasts. There's a fraction of those podcasts that are actually doing anything on a regular basis. So let's talk about the key word in what you do is growth. So somebody
Mm,
comes to you, they have a podcast, their podcast, let's say in the early days, 100, 200 downloads per month, not even per episode, collectively per month, and they're
hmm
like scratching their head. They've been knocking. Then they get to month three, month four, month five, and they're still where they were, and they want to start growing. What's the first thing
mm.
that you're going to do when that person comes to you and asks for help?
That's a great question. And the first thing that we do, and literally early today, me and my business partner, so I've been away for the last 30 days with my girlfriend in Thailand and, enjoying myself, living a little bit more. You kind of work so hard you forget what you're working for, right? So I had a nice little, not even a break, but just a nice little getaway, which is really nice. So me and my business partner met up today and we had a recording session together. And it was actually breaking down this exact question you're asking. What's the first step that you need to take when you're trying to grow your podcast? And it really boils down to what is your current positioning in the market and what is your USP?
Mm,
What's your unique selling point? What makes your podcast different from everyone else out there in the market? So the first thing that I'm doing is just asking myself, well, what makes your show different to everyone else? Why should I listen to you? You know, and there's pillars within that because that can be very arbitrary.
Mhm.
Now, I think it's better for listeners to understand what a USP is not. A USP is not I'm keeping it raw and real. A USP is not I'm speaking to important people. A USP is not I'm breaking complex education down into actionable steps. Those are kind of, I'm hoping, a necessity for any podcast who want to make a good show. That's a starting point. A USP is really for us three things, is the combination of these three things in an equation, a framework. The specific targeting of your podcast plus the weekly output of your show
Mhm.
times the concept of your podcast. Because here's the thing, if you don't have a USP, how are you going to stand out? Why should a sponsor your show versus everyone else?
Mhm.
Why should a listener share your podcast if it sounds like everything else? They don't have a reason. You have to be remarkable. So we start with the USP, your unique selling point. So did you tell me how deep you want to go? How shallow you want to go? You want to over I really
No, no.
want to
I
make sure I'm
mean,
guiding the right way.
I think we're podcasters, so I mean, like, we're just gonna have a conversation. I think both of us been doing it long enough. Like, we're just gonna have fun with it. So, I mean, I'm taking based on what you said, and like, I have show notes in my head, and I have all this information about you that I'll just roll into it. But I think you bring up a very valid point that's in all business, right? I mean, the unfair advantage, which is similar to what you're talking about, and another term to use. But I want people to think about that. Like, if you're coming to a market sector, and again, we're talking about podcasts being 4 to 5 million podcasts, and let's say maybe 20% or 15% of that are business podcasts, what's going to be your unfair advantage in that market sector? So I want you to
Amen.
talk about Big T, okay, your business partner. And you guys are kind of like, you
Mm.
guys plays devil advocate a lot on your podcast. It's like one versus the other, and you guys kind of go back and forth. So I want to kind of talk about like, how did he come into the equation? And then what does he deliver opposite of what you're delivering to the clients?
I love it. So we've really split it up into two different roles. So Ty, he manages my business partner, Ty Gaucher, phenomenal human being, my best friend. He really focused on the client facing stuff. So he works with clients one on one, delivering, fulfilling, really taking care of our clientele. And where I come in is really the sales and marketing side, making sure that we're getting the lead flow coming into the business, making sure that, we are gaining that traction, making sure things are dialed in, that we're getting calls booked, tons of calls booked on a day-to-day basis, and making sure we're constantly pushing with the sales and marketing. So we really work hand in hand where he takes care of the clients and I bring the clients in.
Mhm.
That's really the dynamic we've got going on. I'm the front end, he's the back end.
Which is it's a phenomenal because it kind of talking about partnerships, and I always like to use Steve Jobs and Woz, right? So like you're sitting in
Mm,
Steve position, and T is more so in the Woz position.
that's
So
it.
I think you are Steve for many different reasons. Like I mean, obviously you not only have your business brand, but you also have your personal brand, and I think that
Mm.
personal brand for you, if I remember correctly, I remember seeing a picture with you, and it was November 12th. You were roughly 12 years old, 11 or 12 years old, and you had on a picture of you had on a hoodie of a Wu-Tang. So I want you to kind of like talk about like that global influence. Because I mean, anyone that knows anything about Wu Tang or anything about RZA, like that is a brand within a brand within a brand, and the way he set that up is a magnitude of business structures, all encompassing one thing.
Mm.
And I think what you're building kind of parallels that to a certain extent. So I want you to talk about like
Mm.
how does that kind of fit into what you're doing.
Yeah, so I mean, like, this is gonna be super embarrassing, but I want to be upfront with you, my brother. Dude, Wu-Tang, firstly, I appreciate the time and effort you've put into your research. Honestly, dude, I'm allowed to swear that, I want to be, dude, it's fucking awesome. I'm just gonna go, it's amazing. That's the first thing I want to say. The second thing when it comes to kind of the picture, to be honest with you, man, I was a young boy. I wasn't really too sure what Wu Tang was until later on in life. That's that I realizing, oh wow, Wu Tang, that they have all these different things. So like, it's very hard. I don't want to sit here and be like, oh yeah, that made plays a huge impact on me, yada yada yada. It's happened to manifest in that way, but it wasn't intentional.
Hmm, hmm. So let's just keep going deeper then, right? I mean, I think one of your favorite quotes that I saw online was, "Don't be a hoarded Henry." And so I want you to kind
Mm,
of Like what? I mean, obviously, I did my research. I know what it means, but for you, I want you to kind of unpack what that means because I think it's very parallel to what you're doing, considering that it was a kid's book. So I want you to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess like, for myself when it comes to knowledge and spreading what you're learning along the way, I think it's very important to be authentic, to solve problems for yourself, whether that's relationship, whether that's business, no matter what it is. And then sharing that with family, friends, and sharing it online as well. You have access to so many people who, again, for a lot of people, whether good, bad, rich, poor, a lot of the time life is suffering. Life is pain, but life is also victory and glory if you have the right information and have the right people in the ecosystem and have the right network. So if you're going through something yourself right now and there's a big problem, it might be a business problem, maybe you're struggling with client acquisition. I struggled with that for months and months and months to the point where I'd literally be weeping, crying myself to sleep, praying to God, asking him, dude, what the hell? This is not what I signed up for. Like, I'm
Mhm.
working 16-hour days and nothing's really happening. So now when I eventually, solve client acquisition for myself, I know there's going to be hundreds of people out there, if not hundreds of thousands of people with businesses who are struggling with client acquisition, who don't know what direction to take. But I've solved that for myself. How am I going to hoard that information and knowledge? Why would I? It doesn't help me, it doesn't help them. So by you sharing what you're learning and sharing the solutions to the problems you have solved in your own life, you're adding more good to the world. You're helping a different version of yourself in a different life. If I had someone earlier say to me, "Hey, dude, this is why isn't working. You're doing appointment setting, you send all these messages, but there's no follow-ups." That's super important. Dude, I'm looking at you, I'm reading through these messages that you're sending. You're not engaging with them. You're just thinking about you. You're asking questions. You're not conversating. That's not how you speak to someone. Speak to them like a friend. Yeah, it's business, but these are human beings. You know, when you solve these problems that you're going through in your life, it's important to share with other people and just not hoard. I don't believe in hoarding information because what good is that? I think that's very selfish.
Mhm. So I mean, so obviously you're distributing content to a level to that you're educating individuals. So let's talk about like the general reach, right? I mean, obviously you've worked
Mm,
with dozens and dozens and dozens of podcasts to help them grow. And right now you're located across the pond and you're in UK. So I want you
mm,
to talk about obviously I think anyone that understands Europe is it's a 5 minute walk in any direction to get multiple different countries. So you probably have that on lock. But I mean, are you also reaching out to let's say like Australia, US, and other countries, other regions as well?
Yeah, so I guess my main clientele clients that I work with, it's like 70% US, some people in Australia, so very small percentages are in Australia, and then the other 30% will be UK. So kind of like really dominated massively by US because podcasting is so big in the US compared to UK. UK is a little island, like we're just here in our own little pocket. And we're probably like 5 years behind the US when it comes to things, 5 years behind. There's a lag there. So that's really where the reach, what the reach looks like.
What I mean, kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier about having that unique value proposition, being that you're in that space and you're working where the things are have more demand, and you're saying that
Mm,
UK is a few years behind. That's going to make you like a real thought leader 4 years down
mm,
the road to where you're going to have 10, 15 years of expertise. So when that country catches up, then you kind of step up in the forefront. Was that part of your
mm.
original strategy, or was that just something that just kind of unfold naturally?
Dude, it unfolded naturally, man. I wish I could sit here and say, planned it out, I was super strategic. But dude, I was a dumb broke college student who dropped out of university to pursue business despite having zero experience. So there wasn't really much of a strategy. The thing that I thought to myself was, okay, I'm publishing books to help podcasters grow. People keep reaching out to me to work with them one on one. Therefore, I should charge for my one-on-one access. I charge for it one client into two, two to four, and then things just evolve and kind of manifested naturally. Now, with the experience that with the little experience I have in business, I can now strategize and think a bit further ahead. I can now make moves like that where I can start setting the foundations today so that in 5 years' time I can reap the rewards of that. But back then, when I was just getting started, there was no strategy. There there was nothing. It was just guesswork. Whereas now it's far more intentional. I'm going to do X because in 5 years, in 3 to 5 years time, I'm going to be at Y. And if I'm at Y, then I can do Z. And if I'm at Z, then this means, now it's thinking like that, but has been trained over time.
Mm. So I want time travel to come into this equation, right? So let's say I'm like your older sister or like your older parents, and you're in college and you're studying sports science, and then you say, "The hell with that shit! I'm dropping out and I'm gonna jump into podcasting." And considering the way you're talking now about your younger self didn't have all those puzzle pieces to be able to explain what you was doing, how you were doing. So I'm sure they looked at you like you were batshit crazy. But how did
Hmm.
you still push through that, considering that your family and surrounding people may not have really comprehended what you were planning on doing?
Dude, that's a great question. Again, blown away with the research. Two things, brother. The first thing was God. I can't knock that, man. The first thing was God, dude. I think most people go through life without really having a direction, and that was me for the longest time. I knew I wanted to do something great. I knew I was gonna get there. I just didn't know what lane I was meant to be on. I didn't know what path I was meant to be on. I felt like this goal of all this potential and ambition, but zero direction.
Mm,
What's more frustrating than knowing that you're destined for something great and more, but having no roadmap along the way? And
mm,
I remember just being super down, one evening. I think it was 8 March, early March of 2020 when COVID just happened. I was in my second year of university and I was on my knees. I was praying to God and saying, dude, man, I need some directions. I've got all this potential. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Should I drop out of university? I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to make money. I want to, have freedom. But where the hell where do I step? Please
mm,
show me a way. And I then stumble literally the next video that I watched was a video about law of attraction. At the end of that video was a guy pitching a webinar. Do you want to make money online in the next 90 days and blah 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 blah? And I was like, yeah. But normally I'm skeptical. I'm
yeah.
like, oh, scam, not gonna do that. They're gonna take my money. Who cares? Blah blah blah. This guy's annoying. But for some reason I paid attention.
Mm,
I then invested my time in this webinar. 2 hours later, it was, 12 o'clock to 2 p.m. It's midnight. It's completely dark. I'm there in my little room in my corner with the light glaring and reflecting upon my face.
mm,
And 2 hours into the webinar, I was totally sold. The next morning, I ring my business partner, Ty, say, dude, check this shit out. Dude, check this out. This is a way for us to publish books on Amazon, build a brand, and generate income serving other people.
mm,
All of that wouldn't have transpired if I didn't surrender. Dude, I grew up basically dyslexic. I say basically I was dyslexic, right? So publishing books, I would have never thought that's the path for me. I didn't know the business model even existed.
yeah.
I'd never heard of something like that. And it wasn't until I completely surrendered and asked God, hey, look, dude, man, I'm feeling pretty lost, and just admitted and wept and cried and just asked for help. I made a post recently, dude, you're there's nothing wrong with asking for help, or don't be scared of asking for help because your dreams are worth more than a bruised ego.
Mm,
So I asked for help and God saw me through. That's the first thing. The second thing, when God replies to you and he says to you, dude, go down this path, you listen. You don't go, nah, dude, don't care, ignored. You listen, you show up, you don't air God. Who the hell do you think about airing God? You show up. And that's exactly what I did. And when you understand with full conviction that you're put on this planet to do a particular thing, and you see that vision clear as day, and then your family and the people around you see the change in you,
mm,
they stop doubting because they see the work you're putting in.
mm,
They don't need to understand. They didn't need to understand the business model completely to see the work I'm putting in. And that gave them solitude. Your parents, all they want is to take care of you to make sure you're okay.
yeah.
They don't want you to waste your life. So they knew I wasn't wasting my life. So they felt okay. They felt good. They could sleep well at night because they know that I'm there and I'm working. And then, of course, they then see the growth,
Mm,
you know? So that's really it, man. Number one, it's God. Number two, when you're convicted and you're moving with a certain level of conviction, it's very hard to stop a man on a mission. And it's very hard for that energy to not galvanize because everyone else around you sometimes, depending when you're first getting started, you're not surrounded by entrepreneurs. You're not surrounded by businessmen. You haven't got a sound network around you. So when you're clear and you have a direction, it's almost like a magnet that happens to everyone else around you because they see it. Because to them, they've never really had that. They
Mm.
haven't experienced having like this passion of wanting to pursue something so deeply with a burning desire. So when they see it in you, they know that something is in you that might be missing in them. So they watch and they follow and they support you if they love you, or they hate you, or they hate on you if they don't. And that's really it.
I mean, I think that the fact that, like you said, you reached out to God, God answered you, but I think that you were already on that path, right? I mean, you already found Tay. You guys were already connected. You guys were already building. And if my memory serves me correctly, roughly about a year before, 2 weeks after your birthday, like around June 30th, is when you got connected to Lachey. So I want you to kind of talk about like that time frame with all these different positive things happening to you. Where does your girlfriend fall into this equation? Because she's kind of like your behind the scenes right hand man.
Dude, I love that. I don't. You know what? I don't care. I said this to God. I promised this to God, and I'm gonna give it. The fact you brought up Lachey off the back of what I said about the business and losing direction and finding surrendering, asking God, bro. I was in uni my first year, and I was, sleep, just partying, doing what you would
Hmm.
expect the typical university students to be doing, degenerate stuff, and going out there, smoking weed, drinking alcohol, going out, partying with girls, all that stuff, right? But I felt empty. I was like, I'm meant for more than this. And I was like, again, dude, this is gonna sound crazy to some people, but bro, I asked God. I was like, dude, I know I want someone to come into my life. I want to come into my life who's gonna make me good, who's gonna make me improve, who's going to show me love in a way that I've never thought possible, and I'm able to give love in a way that I never thought possible. And funnily enough, she was going through something similar around the same time. I didn't know this at the time. So I then go back home from university, one of the breaks during Easter. I bump into this beautiful young girl called Lachey, and sparks started flying. Man, it's just crazy, man. Like I don't know. So once again, dude, I surrendered to God, and the reason why I keep saying I'm not gonna not say this on the podcast is because every time I pray, I say that I'm gonna give all glory to God. And now my life is completely transformed. I've got an amazing network. I'm still growing, still on that mission, building a fantastic team. And I'm not going to come on this podcast and abandon my man. So I want to just say I give glory to God because, dude, I surrendered, and things just played out the way they have.
So I mean, obviously, you had all these building blocks coming into fruition, and again, it was kind of you reaching out, and then the opportunity came and persisted itself. And I think what you said about like being in love. I mean, obviously, being in love with Lachey, and also loving your business partner, and also loving the business that you were in. Now it kind of comes down to the like an indirect question about marriage, right? So come to find out, Keisha, Lachey's mom, had made a post that
Hmm.
she was talking about that you pretty much propose on a regular basis to, to, to your girl. So I want you to kind of talk about like that re reissuing of like the pre vows. And again, obviously, you do a lot of meetings with your partner. Like, I want you to talk about commitment. Like, how does commitment really fall into what you're doing and becoming a great podcast strategist?
I wouldn't have every celebrity, every amazing guitarist, every amazing electrician, every amazing father, mother, artist, fighter, doctor,
Mm,
entrepreneur, visionary. What was the one thing they all had in common? They had tons of traits in common, right? But the
yeah.
one thing they unanimously had in common was they all were completely committed.
Mm,
Not kinda committed, not maybe committed. They were fully committed. If you ask yourself, what was the last thing I fully committed to? How did that play out? Truly ask yourself, what was the last thing I was committed to? How did that play out? Plays out pretty well when
Mhm.
you're fully committed. Now
Yeah.
ask yourself, all the things I failed in the past, was I fully committed? The key word is fully, not committed, kinda, but you've got one leg out, you got plan B, you got this thing that no, no, no. Fully committed. If you're in a relationship with your partner, business partner or wife, and you're not fully committed, is that going to work out? No. If you're starting a business and you're trying to build a clientele and you have to serve your clientele every single day, and basically for a period of time, be a servant to your people,
Mm.
can you be kind of committed? No. Steve Jobs building Apple and building the product. Could he kind of be committed and make that? No. So for me, it was just really like I had mentors through my life and I watched how they live, and they are all in characters. They are the most loving people, but they're also vicious and they're committed and they're serious, but they're playful and they play with this polarity.
Mhm.
So commitment is huge. If you're gonna get into anything serious that you want, you have to be committed. It's a prerequisite to success. If you're not committed, I'm not betting on you. It's not gonna work out. You might get lucky,
Mhm.
but luck eventually runs out if you're not committed. It's not been consistent. Just
Mhm.
me committing was everything to me when I just committed to making this work. When I committed to every single day showing up for myself and for my family.
Wow.
Commitment is absolutely everything.
I think it's definitely powerful considering that you're not even 30, right? And I want you to kind of talk about like your upbringing because again, you
Mm.
this has to have been some kind of distilling process over a long period of time for that to climax to where you are right now. So I want you to kind of talk about, are you coming from an entrepreneurial background and where's that sense of achievement and commitment and helping others comes from?
You know, I have to thank my parents for this. So my mom's a nurse. Well, both my parents are nurses, and I didn't grow up with money. I was born in Nigeria, where the roads were completely broken. You have potholes absolutely everywhere,
Mm.
and to get water to drink or water to use to wash in the morning, you would have to go outside into your compound, and you've got to fetch water from a well. You got to put that bucket in your head, and you got to walk up the stairs. And you walk in, you walk up your stairs, you see your ground, and you see your floor that's concrete without carpet. You see the walls that are burned because the place might have been burnt down a few months ago. It wasn't complete and total poverty, but compared to what we have now, where we are now, it basically was. We had nothing.
Mm.
But my parents always had stay strong in faith, and they always instilled in my. I don't know where they got this from, which I didn't know where they got this from, but they always instilled in their children, you can do anything you want as long as you work hard.
Mm.
You can do anything you want as long as you work hard. Nothing's impossible. Nothing's impossible. As long as you work hard, you will get there. And just kept on drilling that since I was a young little boy. And they never shut down my dreams. I remember one time I was walking to church on a Sunday. And as a kid, you're very playful. And I don't know where this whole idea of like wanting to do well and succeed really comes from. I think it's kind of just always been there. I'm sure it's come from somewhere, but I don't think I was conscious enough at the time to really understand where. Maybe it's just come from just not having much and then wanted to have more. When you're growing up. But I remember this one Sunday walking with my mum when I was probably around maybe like I must have been like 9 years old, walking with my mum. At this point, I was really dreaming about what life I'm going to have with my parents. I'm going to, buy them a private jet. I'm going to buy them a Range Rover. I'm going to buy them these nice cars. I'm going to get them a Ferrari. And I go to my mum one day. I was like, Mum, 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 I can't wait till we're older and I can buy you, a nice Range Rover, a nice, really nice car, and then I can buy you a plane. I didn't say private jet, I said plane. And
Mm.
she looks at me with a smirk and a smile on her face like a mother does. And she smiled, but I didn't know what the smile was before. I could tell she gave me a weird look. She smiles, and then she pauses and goes, by the grace of God, amen.
Mm.
She didn't say, no, that's stupid. Oh, you're being silly. Oh, you didn't mean that. She looked at me and agreed and was like, yes, by the grace of God, amen. And then smirked because she knew I was a little kid dreaming. I didn't know how much a plane was. I didn't know like how difficult, quote unquote, it is to achieve those things. but she never shut down my dream. My parents have never ever shut down my dreams. I think that goes a long way as a young child growing up. So it allowed me to mature and develop and create beliefs for myself. They never shut it down. And then they just pushed me.
Mhm.
They just pushed me very hard and told me you can do anything, but you have to work for it. So I think that's where the hunger and the drive, that's where the drive comes from. And I think the hunger to do more for myself and to build a company to help other people out was coming from a place of number one, not having much when I was a young kid.
Mhm.
Seeing everyone around me filled looking like what was filled with abundance, and then me not having much from a young black kid who's moved over to the UK from Nigeria, and then slowly having to really learn and then develop, and then ideas come in mind, then I realize I can do anything. And then when I believe I could do anything, I ask myself, well, why didn't I become a millionaire? Why wouldn't I become a millionaire if earning is impossible? Why wouldn't I have more? Why would I have less? Why wouldn't I take care of my mum if it's possible? Once that thing unlocks, you realize you can do anything. And as a young kid, I started to realize that. And then what did I do? I just started affirming it. I was that arrogant, cocky boy in high school, like, oh, dude, I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do really well. You watch. I was like, no, you're not. How do you? I didn't care. I had conviction because again, I've had this belief in my parents, and I thought people were psychopathic. Or like, you guys are the weird ones. How don't you see how you can do more with your life? How am
Mhm.
I the weird one? You're calling me weird for wanting to achieve more with my life when it's absolutely possible. That drove me nuts.
Mhm.
I felt so alone. And then the other piece in terms of as I've gotten older, what drives me now, because it changes and morphs. To me now, it's really about number one, building an amazing product to serve our clients, being the best at what we do, seeing where my full potential takes me, my family, and my clients. And I love the art of creating. You have an idea in your mind, and then with hard work and consistency and commitment, one little thought can come into reality with just a thought. That the cap you're wearing, the hat you're wearing, the house you live in, where did that come from? No, it didn't come from the mechanics. No, it didn't come from the car dealership. No, it didn't come from the engineers who created it. No, it didn't come from the machines that made it. No, it doesn't come from aluminium. It came from someone's mind. Bro, what is more insane and beautiful and fun than creating?
100% agree. 100% agree. Well, I mean, I think going back to like your family dynamics, right? I mean, obviously you're talking about your parents are distilling all these great characteristics into you, but you weren't alone, right? I mean, you had your older sister Mary, and you also have a brother John. So the three of you in that combination, if I had Mary and John on this podcast right now, and if I was to ask them to illustrate just by using maybe 3 to 5 keywords to pick who you are, what do you think those 3 to 5 words would be?
Hmm. Dedicated, loving, hardworking, a bloody good question. I'll say those. Dedicated, hardworking, loving.
Okay. So like just continue to paint this story. I don't think you were those things always, right?
Hmm.
And let's say if you had an opportunity to time travel back, let's say in the last 12 years, and you
Hmm.
have a 5 minute window with your younger self, you just pop in, you're pretty much like a kid at the time. What would you tell yourself to help you to become who you are now a lot faster if you had that opportunity?
I'm gonna give two answers. I'm gonna give the cop out answer, which is I wouldn't change anything, right? But if I want to play the game, which I think is fair, and I don't want to be that guy, I want to be very fair. I'll go back to my younger self and I'd say, I'd say what my parents told me. I'd say you can achieve anything if you just put your head down and you work
Mm,
consistently on it. Because even though my parents were telling me that over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, and I believed in it, I really struggled in high school.
mm,
At some points, I started thinking, am I dumb? Dude, I remember there was this one time in year eight, I was in bottom set for science, bottom set for English, bottom set for maths. I was failing every single subject under the sun, apart from RE, religious studies. Bet you can imagine that, right?
yeah.
Apart from that, I was acing that, but that's a given, you know. I remember one parents' evening when the teachers would invite the parents to school, and they'll basically have a conversation with your parents whilst you're there. I remember just being so embarrassed and so nervous because I knew exactly what my teachers were going to say. And I've got my two hardworking parents who've grafted, my mum who sacrificed her entire life, the last 40, 50 years of our life to work to get us to a new country, to give us opportunity that
Mm,
my cousins would kill for. My father, who's also dedicated hard work and is always instilling in me, work hard, work hard, work hard. And here we are in parents' evening, me in the middle, squished up, back arched over myself, looking down, couldn't make eye contact with my teachers because I knew exactly what was going to come out their mouth. He doesn't pay attention. He's failing. These are his grades. We're not really happy with where he's at. And even then, I still didn't make a change. It's weird. Even though I knew I needed to work hard and do these things, I still didn't put the F in. And it wasn't until I was around my science classroom in bottom set once again. And I remember just one day, I don't know what it was. It's super weird, man. It's like I woke up. Like I woke up and just looked around me and thought to myself, he's picking his nose and hasn't paid attention for the last seven lessons. And he's speaking absolute nonsense. That girl over there can barely even speak.
mm,
He can't even write. And the person beside you, all they've done in class is literally just piss about and not pay attention. And I felt extreme discomfort. I was like, I'm not going to be here. It was this thing that I was like, I'm not meant to be here. It's almost like I realized, like, it was super weird. Like, I was in a trance and then I woke up and was like, oh, I'm not meant to be here. So what did I do? I put my head down, I worked super hard, and then by the end of year nine, a year later, I was in top set for English, top set, well, it was, sorry, like top two sets for English, maths, and science. And then experiencing those beliefs reinforced the identity I had for myself. My parents told me, amazing, I believe them, but not fully really. I believed them deeply and I believed in myself deeply, but I didn't experience it, so I didn't know.
mhm,
There's belief and there's no. I then woke up and realized, oh wow, I'm not meant to be here. There's a bunch of people around me, and to use simple terms, not being rude, they were losers. And I was like, I know this isn't for me. I'm meant to be more than this in life. And then I applied the belief my parents told me, you can do anything you want if you set your mind to it. So I set my mind to it. I applied that. I experienced it. And then I knew.
mm,
And that's been a trend throughout my entire life. And I think a lot of people kind of know things and believe things, but then believe things, but then put into action. But if you then put into action, you can't know. Belief is only good if you have the experience. Belief will get you there. Belief alone won't get you there. Belief gets you started. Experience and conviction with commitment takes you all the way there. So that was it for me, man. That's what I'll say to myself. Work hard
yeah.
and listen to you to listen, just work hard and be consistent because you'll get there.
So, I mean, obviously, on that journey to becoming who you are, just like listening to the way you speak right now, that tells me that you've done a fair share of reading in your time, right?
Hmm.
So, again,
Hmm.
let's say you're talking to a younger version of yourself. That younger version of yourself could be a listener listening right now. What
Mm.
books would you like to recommend to kind of help them to take that belief, to take that action, to then know?
Think and grow rich. You know, it's a cliche for a reason. I don't care. I'm saying it. Think and Grow Rich. That honestly, it's such a good book. And if you read it and really absorb it, dude, I've read that book 5 times. Like 5 times in the last 5 years. I keep coming back to it because the more you read something, the deeper your understanding becomes of that. You then go out to the world, you apply it. You now know that. You now go back and you reread the exact same book, and there's a different level of depth and understanding again.
Mhm.
So to me, it was Think and Grow Rich. So that's what I'd recommend to anyone who's trying to get themselves started, really just trying to reaffirm certain things that they know and really just solidify what it really takes. Think and Grow Rich is a
Mhm.
fantastic starting point.
Have you had an opportunity to read Outwitting the Devil?
I have not, but it's on my reading list, and I've I've not. Tell me
Yeah,
more.
I'm just saying it's just like hearing your personality, hearing like your belief system, and obviously, we're talking about the same writer. That book is a phenomenal book because it's almost kind of like alter ego or like the angel and devil on your shoulders, but you're confronted with that person and they're telling you everything negative, but you're saying everything positive. And it becomes a
Mm,
argument between an individual that's striving for greatness and the devil that's trying to say you're never going to make it. So if you get an
mm,
opportunity, you definitely want to, if, at the bare minimum, if you're an audiobook person, I think it's on YouTube. You just want to type in "Outwitting the Devil," Napoleon Hill, and just listen to it. It's dope in the sense that if you are sitting in the dark and everything is dark, you can almost visualize that person
mm,
yourself having this debate with the devil, and you're not going to let him win. If that makes sense.
mm. Yeah, that sounds powerful.
Yeah, it definitely is. Definitely is. So I think we're on a really good roller coaster, right? So a listener's listening. Let's say that listener is 16, 17, 18 years. You're not far from that. I mean, like you're in that
Hmm.
generation to where your intellectual side is a little bit older because of what you're doing, but then you still have
Mm.
the side so you can talk to them. So I want you to kind of give them words of insight, words of wisdom, considering that, let's say at the age of 17, 18 to like 20, they're not really sure what they want to do. They're still trying to figure things out. And you're right at that cusp to where not only did you figure it out, but you can still relate to them.
What I would say, coming from my own experience, would be everything that if you feel lost right now, number one, no, it's okay.
Mm,
It's normal. Dude, it's normal. You're gonna be lost. Of course you are. Number two, shut out the noise. Family, friends, parents, girlfriend. Shut out the noise because everyone around you will have an agenda for you. They might have the best intentions, but it doesn't mean the path you're going to go down is the best thing for you. That's the second piece. The third piece will be learn to know yourself. If you keep having thoughts of, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to make my own money, I want to have all these different thoughts, you might feel a bit different because people around you aren't having those same thoughts.
mm,
But that's what makes you unique. That means it's your calling. That voice isn't coming up for no reason. If you keep looking at YouTubers going, oh, I'd love to be a YouTuber, I'd love to be a YouTuber, I'd love to be a YouTuber, but you don't believe you can be a YouTuber, and you say, I would love to, I would love to be a YouTuber.
mm,
Those thoughts being repeated from your subconscious mind come from somewhere. So listen. Learn to listen to your subconscious mind, the things that keep popping up. Thoughts can be random, but if the thoughts keep showing up and 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 showing up, start paying attention. We all have those thoughts. I know I should speak to this person who's because I feel uncomfortable when they do this. I really should speak to that person who really makes me feel uncomfortable. Or I should break up with this person because X, Y, and Z. 2 years later, I still haven't break up. I really should break up with this person at this time because X, Y, Z. Dude, your own mind is speaking to you, trying to give you advice. That's what you should listen to because that's your subconscious, deep rooted, and it's there when you need it for direction. So start learning to listen to yourself as well. because everyone else around you want different agendas, different things. And the thing is, if you listen to them, your parents, your mom, or your friend, or your girlfriend, or whatever, and you as a growing up teenager, man or woman, didn't make the decision for yourself, and it doesn't work out, who are you gonna blame?
Mm.
I'd rather fail and the failure be on me than fail because my parents or someone told me not to. Because now I'm beating myself up for listening to them, number one. And now I'm furious and resentful at my parents for sending me down the wrong path, even though they had the best intentions. So listen to yourself and pray to God if you feel lost.
Yeah, I think again, like where you are in position of business, if you're not a motivational speaker, evidently you are, right? Without you even kind of thinking about it. So someone is listening and they're hearing you, and again, you're living it. You're in that age group to where you could help them convert. How does someone get in contact with you? They may want to start a podcast, or they may have a podcast, and they want you to help them grow. How would they find you?
They'll find me on Facebook, Anthony Nwaneri, Nwaneri. That's where you're going to find me. Or you can check out our podcast while your podcast isn't growing. Um, and that's on Apple and Spotify, wherever you listen to podcast overall. If you want a starting point, I'll go to episode 2, which is 7 reasons why most podcasters struggle to grow that no one is talking about. That's
Very,
what I'd say.
very cool. So going into like a bonus question for you, right? And I think this is going to be definitely interesting considering like your age and also your intellectual side. But if you had an opportunity to spend 24 hours with anyone, this person could be someone that's dead, someone alive, someone that you've met, not met, someone that you've seen on TV. Who would that person be and why?
For the month, came back home, took my parents out for a lovely breakfast as well as my brother. I just took them out because I wanted to make sure I had that time with them. And then we are talking about, God and Jesus and life and all these different things about hard work and sowing what you reap.
Mhm.
And me and brother started conversating and we're like, dude, think about it. In maybe like every person that you know, Kobe Bryant, rest his soul, incredible basketball player, pinnacle of his game, absolutely crushing it. His effects are still felt today. In 100 years' time, that dwindles. Not even 100 years' time, 20 years' time, 10 years' time, slowly dwindles. The effect still remains, but the talk and the wisdom and slowly dwindles. Jesus Christ, whether you believe in him or not, 2,000 years ago, this brother died. And guess the name that every single person that he speaks in the Western world, all over the globe, knows. They might not, they don't even know. There's going to be millions and billions of people that don't know who even Jesus might be, but they know his name.
Yeah.
My brother must have been on some smoke, doing some crazy stuff, and being, of course, from if you're a believer, the son of God, or whatnot. But to have that ripple effect for such a long time, I want to know how. I want to get it from the source and speak to him, because I would love to have that kind of impact for years to come. My generation, my grandkids will know who I am by the grace of God, because what we're going to build and allow them to have and gain the rewards of. But in 2,000 years, ain't nobody going to know who my name is. How the hell do I make that kind of an impact? And that's why it'll be Jesus that I want to speak to.
Yeah, I think that's not only a great answer, but the viewpoint on the answer is phenomenal as well too. Because to your point, 2,000 years. I mean, Beyonce is pretty big household name. Taylor Swift is a big household name, but in a couple hundred years,
Ain't nobody talking,
yeah, yeah. I mean, and I mean, if you go back to music, I mean, we talk about some other artists. Entertainment is like the global connector for everyone. It's always about entertainment,
Mm,
always about religion. So to your point, I mean, there may be some people that we could think about, but you have to think about it. You have to stop and process and remember or visualize something you've seen or heard in the past when this person was alive and you wasn't. So to your point, the only connection would have been Jesus. He's the only person that has been timeless so far.
that's it, man.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. So we're getting ready to close out, and I love to close out this way because it kind of gives whoever I'm interviewing an opportunity. Because I've been grilling you this entire time. You're a podcaster, I'm a podcaster, so now you're the host of Boston Cage. I'm your guest. What questions do you have for me?
Firstly, I want to just genuinely say this. I've been, I get interviewed a lot. I listen to a lot of interviews. Thank you, brother. Man, you've been awesome. It's been really, really good. That's what I want to say firstly. You've done your research. You've really taken the time to know who we are, your guests, and speaking. And it's a great experience, number one. The question I have for you, man, where did this drive come from? Where did your drive come from to want to go that level deeper, to not just like where did your
Yeah,
drive come from, go all in on this, Because I see it, man. You don't get to where you are without really thinking and concluding and experiencing and knowing that this is what you're meant to be doing. So where did that come from?
think it's a combination of different things. I mean, I think it came from being a single parent for a period of time and wanting to leave the inspiration of a legacy and building something. And then it came from, facing death and almost dying and then saying, okay, I got a second opportunity. What am I going to do with it? And then like going into where I'm at right now. I mean, obviously these visions of who you are and what you want to be constantly keeps growing. And where I'm at right now is not where I'm going, right? But I think it's
Mm,
so going back to what you said about that 2000 years, right? Last thing, you can do on this planet is create content that's fruitful, evergreen content much like what Jesus did. I mean, everything that he stated and believed are still beliefs and being taught today. So why couldn't we as individuals do the same thing? And to your point, the only way I can really make those level of connections, I have to go 25 times deeper than the average podcaster. I have to I want to be able to say when you were 5 years old and you had on a pair of Adidas and the laces broke. I want to be able to talk about that. Like prime example with you and your sister was with a picture with you and your sister was like, he made me take the picture and you had on a fur coat and you were like modeling and she was like just little things like that that just stay fresh in my memory. But that's an opportunity for you to go way deeper. So when like I meet you in person, it's like we already met. It's not the first time.
mm,
So imagine that at scale. Imagine that every time I interview someone and then they tell someone to listen to the podcast, or then they make a referral for me to interview someone else, whether that person is a millionaire, a billionaire, or they're just freshly starting out, I'm going to give everyone the same equal dedication to doing that research.
brother, I appreciate that. And for those listening right now, I'm a podcast coach. This is what excellence looks like. That just from me to you, brother, like genuinely, that right there, your breakdown, what you just said, the reason, how you've thought about it, the intention, that's excellent. At the start when I said you need a reference point, your USP, what makes you different?
Mm.
There you go, look, man. Ain't nobody doing this stuff. It's extremely rare. And this is a reference point, a very high bar that you've set in terms of excellence, you know. So I appreciate you, man.
Well, I appreciate you as well too, man. I think this is not going to be the last time we have some communication and talking, especially since you're an author.
Absolutely not, man.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I have a book podcast too. So I mean, that's the funny thing about podcasts is like just following up with like emails afterwards. You're gonna get access and get an invite to that as well too. I would love to kind of just have like a whole hour just to kind of really talk about your books and how did you
For
even
sure.
get into book writing, considering that you wrote so much different content and you're not even 30
Mhm.
years old. Again, it's like you're the pinnacle as well in your own right. So I just want you to
Mm,
understand that like you're setting the example for the next generation and you're doing it very well.
mm. Oh, I appreciate it, man.
Great. With that, S.A. Grant, over and out.